What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I've got another very important AMC update to bring all of you this afternoon. So what we're going to be covering in this update video is some really solid news that Adam Aron has just released to us. Now, I know some of you guys might be on either side of the fence on whether or not this is bullish, bearish, or neutral for AMC in the short term. And I think that really stems from some of the conversations that have been happening in the community over the last couple of weeks surrounding this tokenized security NFT dividend situation. Now, what Adam Aron has just done in terms of this new NFT release isn't necessarily going to put a lot of pressure on the shorts right away in the way that people think, but this really sets up a nice runway for AMC to really get comfortable initiating these types of business plans in the crypto market. And there's also another aspect of this that is very, very bullish that I don't think a lot of people are really understanding, and I want to go over that and just explain exactly what this means to you guys as well. Now, we also have to go over a couple of key pieces of Ortex data that are really going to be important going into the end of the year. We have the option chain that we always need to cover. We have the max pain data as well. And with the way that the market has been acting over the last week, especially with these unexpected catalysts coming up, I would expect to see a lot of volatility going forward. So we're going to go over exactly how these different price movements in the broad market are going to affect AMC in the short term going into the end of the year, and what you guys need to look out for in order to protect yourselves and your investments in not only just AMC, but anything else you guys might be holding as well. So before we get into all of that information, if you enjoyed the information and analysis that I provide for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps us out a whole lot in getting this information out to as many people who want to learn. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. So when we come over to this Ortex data over here, utilization 74.95%, estimated short interest 15.78%. Remember, guys, when we're looking at the Ortex data, it can really only be used as a bare baseline minimum of what the potential short interest actually is for any given stock. We've gone over this many, many times on how these large institutions are able to hide this short interest. And when we look at this data, we really only have to look at the trends. But if something happens where this data starts to freak out, and it doesn't necessarily make sense or correlate to the price action that we are seeing, well, we're going to have to take this data with an even larger grain of salt. But the key data point that I really want everybody to start focusing in on is this days to cover metric. We briefly talked about this in yesterday's video, but as the days to cover starts to go up, it means that it's going to take the shorts a longer amount of time to get out of their position. So if we continue to see low volume on AMC and the shorts need to get out of their position, and they need to buy to close out that position, that buying volume that comes in is going to have a much more drastic effect on the price action to the upside. So as days to cover goes up and the shorts decide that they need to get out, well, that's going to lead to some even more volatile price action on AMC to the upside when that eventually does happen. Now, when we come over to this Adam Aron situation, this idea came from you partnering with Sony for AMC's first ever NFT, more than 100 unique Spider-Man NFTs given free to the first 86,000 online buyers of US AMC December 16th tickets for Spider-Man No Way Home, only for Stubs Premier, A-List, and Investor Connect members. So again, guys, this isn't going to be the NFT or anything in the crypto space that AMC is issuing that is going to really set off the squeeze and put a lot of pressure on these shorts. But here's what it does do. Now, when we look at this last sentence here, only for Stubs Premier, A-List, and Investor Connect members. Now, the Stubs Premier and A-List membership, you have to pay for that. So this is going to drive a lot more revenue for AMC. And in addition to this, you also have to buy a ticket in order to qualify for one of these free NFTs. Again, even more revenue for AMC going forward. This kind of serves as kind of a turbocharge to AMC's revenue and foot traffic going to their theater. When you think about a lot of people saying that this is not a fundamental play, I would say that that is slightly incorrect. When we think about the actual short thesis behind AMC, it's based on their fundamentals. All of the shorts are going to harp all day long on how AMC has a bunch of debt. The movie theater industry is on a downturn, but with Adam Aron coming out with NFTs like this, that is going to drive more foot traffic into the theaters. It makes the short thesis even more irrelevant than it already was. And in addition to this, it creates that kind of runway that we were talking about before, where AMC can get comfortable in the crypto space, in the NFT space, with really initiating these types of business plans. So this is really only the beginning, and I can't wait to see what Adam Aron and the team at AMC continue to come out with in the future. And again, guys, this may not drive the share price of AMC tomorrow, but this is a very solid step in the right direction. So coming over to the options chain here, when we look at this date coming up, the weekly expiration, we're not really seeing a whole lot. 3,000 contracts in the money, 65,000 contracts out of the money. Very, very low amount of open interest. We do see a decent amount on this December 17th expiration date, but we're really still looking at that January expiration date because of all of those contracts already in the money and the potential for a lot of these contracts out of the money to run in the money, and these market makers are going to have to hedge a significant portion of those contracts. Now, when we come over to this Max Payne chart over here, we're only seeing the Max Payne at $39 a share going into next week at the current time. But again, with what we just talked about, with the extremely low amount of open interest on the option chain right now, I would expect this Max Payne number to change as people start to YOLO or gamble on these weekly options for AMC. So again, when we take a look at the Max Payne going into the next couple of weeks, it really does step up going into that December monthly options expiration date in that slow stair stepping up of Max Payne. And we know that these market makers are going to keep trying to pin the price around these Max Payne levels. That does provide for some decent stair stepping price action going into the end of the year. But we do have a lot of other catalysts that are coming up. When we come over to this section right here on Nft'S, this is the 1 week performance of the S&P 500 stocks. And as you guys can see here, it is very, very red. Now, on Friday, we saw a very significant drop in the overall markets. And when we come over to this data point right here, the margin debt as reported by FINRA, it is at an all-time high, meaning that the leverage levels in the overall market are at an all-time high. When we see anything in the market start to freak out, if it goes to the upside, well, if you are long and you have a lot of margin, that is going to amplify your returns. But the same thing happens on the downside. If you are long and you are trading with a lot of leverage, it is very, very easy for you to get margin called. Now, with a lot of these individual names having very significant decreases over last week, it is very, very possible that a lot of these funds and a lot of these institutions are getting calls from whoever their prime broker is that they're going to need to put up more collateral. And this is just the beginning. We are seeing a lot of these headlines start to come up. U.S. imposes travel restrictions over the new pandemic variant. We're seeing Israel bans all foreigners from entering the country in response to Omicron fears. Now, I have seen some reports that this new variant is not necessarily as severe as the ones that we've seen in the past, but that doesn't necessarily matter if we are going to see a lot of these countries start to close down travel or even put in more restrictions. That is going to be what I want everybody to really start to look out for. It doesn't necessarily matter in terms of the reaction in the stock market, what is actually going on with this new disease itself. It's the reaction by these countries. We saw a very significant, almost overreaction on Friday when this news started to break, and that is why the overall market started to sell off. Now, we could see a lot of this volatility continue, but we also have this situation that is coming up right here. The U.S. might not be able to pay bills after December 15th, Treasury Secretary Yellen says. So we just went through a debt ceiling situation in the past, and we saw how that affected our broad market. We saw a very significant sell-off when the news media outlets started talking about the debt ceiling and how the United States could default default or get their credit rating downgraded. So again, most likely the United States is not going to default, but it really all hinges upon the reaction of big money in the market and what these news media outlets are going to be saying about this situation. There could be a lot of fear mongering coming up. So I do expect us to see a little bit of rockiness going into the end of the year. And in addition to this, we also have Fantasia over in China really getting ready for liquidation. So when we have all of these things really starting to come together, and for you guys who don't know, Fantasia is just like another Evergrande. They're another property developer over in China. So when we have a lot of these situations all coming together, it could lead to a lot of rockiness in the market. Now, how does that affect AMC going into the end of the year? Well, I know a lot of people like to bring up the concept of negative beta, but I feel like we've kind of been through this by now. Negative beta and beta itself is a backward-looking metric, and you can't use beta by itself to see where a stock is going to perform in the future. So if we see some weakness in the market, we are most likely going to see AMC come down with it. But that does not necessarily change anything in terms of the short squeeze side of this investment or the fundamentals continuously increasing and getting better for AMC. And as we've seen in the past, AMC can always disjoint from what the market is doing and go on an absolutely wild run. So again, we are going to have to prepare ourselves for volatility. And when we think about this investment that we are in, nobody knows when the next massive run up like June is going to happen. And we also don't know how high this can go. What we are really working towards here is one, we are playing a waiting game with a lot of these institutions on basically a battle of the diamond hands. We know these shorts don't want to get out of their position, and we know that retail investors are just going to keep buying because we know the implications of this situation. The second thing is we are trying to make our markets more free and more fair. So even if AMC were to squeeze tomorrow, our job as apes and retail investors is far from over. We have a long battle ahead with the SEC and a lot of these different regulators to make our markets more fair. So that is really going to wrap up this update on AMC. If you enjoyed the information and analysis that I provided for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps us out a whole lot in getting this information out to as many people who want to learn. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. So I hope you guys are having a great weekend and are excited for this next trading week ahead, and I'll see you guys in the live stream tomorrow morning.